Hanna.
And I'm Matt Hanna.
And this is Horror Hour with the Hannas,
where we talk about all your favorite or not so favorite scary movies.
And today we are joined by Seth from Movie Friends Podcast. Hi, Seth.
Hey, how are you guys?
I'm good. We are very excited to have you on. We love doing collabs with fellow podcasters.
So, Seth, tell us about your podcast. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I was very tempted to start with a joke there, but I probably shouldn't do that, right? Like, is that a good idea right out the gate?
You're welcome to. We go on tangents. We get silly. We'll do whatever.
So I co-host a show called Movie Friends that I started with my friend Michelle, and we cover all films from film history from around the world. This month we're doing Nicolas Cage films, which is pretty exciting. And yeah, the thrust of our show is we mostly just focus on our experience with each movie. We don't try to focus on like all the background information that you could find by just Googling like 15 facts that you never knew about the sadness, or yeah, it's more personal, and we try to include as many people as we can. It's like a really community driven show. And we believe that there's no right opinion about a movie. So that's why it's called Movie Friends and not Movie Experts. And and yeah. And then a little bit about me. I do not love gore. But when you guys gave me a list of films to pick from, I chose The Sadness because I think it was the only one that I haven't done an
Oh,
episode on. And yeah,
wow.
so
we screwed you over, man. I'm sorry.
Oh no, it's fine. I watched this film for the first time with my wife and my brother a few years back, and we were all three of us quite stunned. And so I kind of haven't thought about it too much since then. So revisiting and diving deeper into this and the director, it was pretty interesting.
So before we keep going, tell us where to find you.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you can find us everywhere. Your garbage can, the back lot behind your house. Everywhere, Movie Friends Podcast. Mostly on Instagram and Twitter. We tried TikTok, and we were like, we don't like this. So we stopped doing it. But anywhere you listen to podcasts, and you can find us on our website, moviefriendspodcast.com. And before we started recording, I found out that a week ago I was a few blocks from your house. So
True.
Talk about a universal coincidence.
Yeah.
We could have recorded in person.
Yeah, apparently we could have.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
What a surprise.
And I have to ask an icebreaker question. Since you're covering Nicolas Cage movies this month, do you have a favorite Nick Cage movie?
Well, I guess that would depend on which Nicolas Cage we're talking about.
That's fair. There are many versions of Nicolas Cage.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, hands down favorite, like if I just had to say like, whatever this word means to you, best Nicolas Cage movie, favorite performance would be Pig for sure. But then, Moonstruck, I think, is a miracle of like modern filmmaking. And I'm in tandem with our series this month. I'm doing 25 new to me Nick Cage movies. So that's been really cool. I just watched Sympathy for the Devil, which I didn't like love, but I really dug his performance in that. I watched Season of the Witch, which I had a fun time with. That's one of the, lesser popular ones or considered high quality. So, but yeah, there's a lot. I mean, yeah, I think he will go down as one of the top 5 great modern actors. It probably just won't happen until after he dies, which is a shame. But yeah, he's amazing.
We're in agreement over here.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd say top 5, but I'm a big believer that he is great.
I love him.
Yeah.
Like, truly. He's like a little freak, but I'm here for it. He just does something so different than what anyone else is doing. And yeah, sometimes that does not fit your movie, but other times it fits wonderfully.
Wild at Heart. That's one that we love from him. So
we've been talking for a while, and by like a while, like since we started, about doing like a special feature Nicolas Cage in horror episode or Nicolas Cage in horror month, but there are so many that I have like struggled to narrow it down, and then I just keep delaying it because it means so much to me to capture his films.
You know what you call it?
So for a while I kept threatening, I think this is a threat, honestly, that we were going to start a new podcast where we watched every single Nicolas Cage movie, and it was going to be called Cage Match, because the concept was to find the best Nicolas Cage movie. But what is your idea?
Well, if you're going to do Nicolas Cage horror movies, you have to call it Cage Fright.
Oh,
that's
I
good.
like that. Write that down. Write that down.
I like it.
Cage Fright Month. That's great.
Yeah.
I love that.
Ideas guy over here.
Yeah, we're going to have to credit you on that.
Yeah, that's all I'm good for. I can't actually produce anything, but if you need ideas, I've always thought that the best job that I would be suited for would be to work at like Amazon or Google, someone that could afford to pay someone to just sit in a room and anyone could come and knock on the door and be like, hey, what about this? And I would give an idea and then shut up again.
Well, so do you have a favorite horror subgenre?
That is a good question. I'm going to say I can definitely tell you my least favorite horror subgenre, which would be found footage.
Okay.
There are some good found footage movies, but every found footage movie boils down to people arguing the same point over and over and over again because there's nothing else to fill out the runtime with, and it just bothers me so much. I'm not proud, because I'm not proud to hate any movie. I want to love every movie, right? But I'll say a staunch Blair Witch Project non-lover, which usually gets people upset because they love it. Oh my God, I can't stand arguing. It's troublesome to me.
No, I actually think that that's a valid complaint.
Yeah.
And I think I like the Blair Witch Project, but I think that that's a very okay complaint to have. Although if you said it about Wreck, I'd be kind of pissed. So
I feel similar ways about that, but I like that one more. I like that one more.
All right, good. We'll take it.
Yeah.
We'll take what we can get.
See, we're the opposite. You're the no wrong opinions podcast. We're that until it's an opinion I don't like.
And then you're right.
Then it's wrong. So.
Well, I mean, that's the thing about, tolerance is everybody is tolerant of everything except for the things that they don't want to be tolerant about. So, yeah.
Being called out.
But yeah, so I know that's not really an answer to your question.
No, that's a fine answer.
Yeah, I like, I guess, like psychological horror, I guess I would say I prefer. I appreciate slashers. Big fan of the Saw series.
Same here.
Until 5 through whatever. But yeah, I dig psychological horror.
Yeah, that's definitely a favorite over here, I would say. Do you have any like all-time favorite horror movies you'd want to shout out real quick before we jump into the sadness?
Oh my God. Yes. So I'll just read off a bunch here. I have a list on my Letterboxd, my top 150 favorite movies. So this is my horror section. Prepare yourselves. Original Godzilla 1954. Mad God. Black Christmas. Suspiria, but the Guadagnino version. The Shining. David Lynch's short Premonitions Following an Evil Deed. Cure. The Witch. Hereditary. Possession. Carrie. One Cut of the Dead. Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. Jennifer's Body. The Long Walk. The Thing. And then Blurring the Lines. The Night of the Hunter.
Beautiful. A variety.
That's a decade spanning list.
Yeah,
I appreciate that.
Solid.
There's a bunch on there I haven't seen. There's a bunch I have seen. I don't know. That's a good list.
It's a good list. Thank
Cure
you
is one that keeps coming up, and I haven't seen Cure, and I've seen Pulse, and I know it's the same director.
You have to. If anyone is listening to this, you have to see Cure. It is a film through which you will see every other horror movie. And I that's not hyping it up or hyperbole. It is a genre defining film, Cure.
See, this is one we should just cover, especially after this
I think,
episode.
yeah.
So
No,
good.
and I watched Pulse and I loved it, and I didn't
Yeah.
realize until recently they were the same director, and I was like, oh shit, like I gotta watch Cure.
Yeah.
Especially
It's better.
if it's better than
It's
Pulse.
better than Pulse. It's better than Pulse.
Is it as pants shittingly scary as Pulse though?
Yes.
At least-
it's
okay,
it's
good,
a
good,
different. It's different. It's different. It's not like jump scares. It's not like it's disturbing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It'll freak
Well-
you out to be a human being, which is what horror should do.
Audience can hold us accountable. We'll cover Cure.
Okay.
I'm convinced.
Yeah, we'll
put
add
it
it
on
to
the
the
list. We have an
list
opening, so
Okay.
maybe just you and I, or we'll see.
Okay. Well, the sadness. So I'm going to go through some background. If you have anything to add that I haven't elaborated on, feel free to jump in if you know better than me. We don't normally do too much background, but this movie, I had some opinions on some of the director's interviews that I'll be splicing in.
Very good.
So this is a Taiwanese movie from 2021 with a Canadian director, Rob Jabbaz. Do you know if I'm pronouncing that right?
Jabbaz,
I don't do my
I believe.
Jabbaz,
Okay,
French.
perfect. It stars Barant Zhu and Regina Lee as a young couple attempting to reunite amidst a viral pandemic that turns people into homicidal sadists. So the story is heavily inspired by a comic book called Crossed by Garth Ennis. And some fun facts. Have you heard that the film is allegedly funded by cryptocurrency and the producer's camgirl business?
No, I did not.
I thought that was so funny, but I can't find any actual articles that say that. That was just in like IMDb's trivia section, and I cannot find
Interesting.
anything that states that that is accurate.
I mean, IMDb is, I think, considered like a good source for that stuff, but
Well, sometimes their trivia thing, you got to take it with a grain of salt because
Yeah.
it's a bit like anyone can say anything.
Yeah.
I will say, like, I listened to an interview with him, and he described working with this guy for a year, writing a film. This guy, like, a guy wanted to make a movie, and from the sound of it, the dude was like independently wealthy somehow, enough to pay this guy for a year to work on a movie. And then when COVID happened, he was like, no, wait, we need to pivot to this other thing. And so they just abandoned a project a year in. So what you're saying sounds possible.
Well, yeah, so I was reading in an interview, he said when the pandemic happened, his boss was like, okay, Hollywood's closed. We can make a movie right now and we won't have any competition, but we need to release it soon. And then he said it had to be a virus or zombie movie. So Rob was like, I don't want to write a zombie movie. That's boring. It's all been done to death. What's left to say? So he said he was trying to find ways to push the envelope. And that is where we got the sadness and the sadist element of the story. And because of Crossed.
Right.
Because he said it was really just based on creating a lot of good gore gags and very painful effects. So a lot of the film, most of the film is practical effects, which I think you can tell when you
Yes,
see it.
very
They all
much
look
so.
very, very good.
and they were hard to look at a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I do love practical effects, and that's like one thing I think this movie does really have going for it is they are great practicals. Like in any time, I've said it many times, like anytime you go with an actual physical effect, it's always you're going to have more suspension of disbelief when something has like some tangible elements. So it worked. And I don't even know if I needed suspension of disbelief because it was gross. And
It was gross.
It looked real.
It did look real.
Especially when a guy got poured or hot oil poured on his face. That was right to start out the movie.
Yep. Yeah, I think it was Hanna messaged me on Instagram and said something along the lines of like, oh, do you like this movie? And it was right when I was watching that scene, and I took a picture of the hot oil effect and sent it back, and I said, I'm not sure like is the word to use.
So Hannah and I had never seen this going in. So that's why.
Why was this on your list?
Because I've heard so much about it that I felt like I needed to see it. I needed to do that to myself.
And then you picked it. So
right.
So
right,
then
right.
we have you to blame.
Yeah, it's
So
actually your
let
fault.
this be a lesson to you guys to only put things on your list that you have watched before.
Yeah, this was a choice that we made.
Yep. So is there any other background, or do we want to get...
I do have a little bit more background. In an interview, same interview that I already read from before, he said, I felt really strongly about it, like this is gonna make people shit their fucking pants. Which, okay, sir. And then he says that I knew even just by default that I would have at least one of the top 5 horror movies of 2021. So he said he wasn't surprised that it had a bunch of like festival runs because he knew it would be one of the best of the year.
This is also the guy that said, well, we won't have any competition.
Yeah.
So, you know, top 5 is not hard when you don't have competition.
Yeah.
Right.
That's funny. Okay. So, as I said, we didn't see this before going in. You have seen this before.
Yeah.
Is this one you've watched on repeat, or is this like a second viewing?
No, you know, I don't watch a lot of films on repeat. There's just too many movies to watch and to get to. And especially like with our show, I'll usually watch a movie like 2 or 3 times for that. And so that really kind of fills the void of rewatching movies in my life.
Yeah.
So yeah. No, I watched this, like I said, with my wife and my brother. We had kind of heard about, you know, that it was pretty gnarly. And pretty much once the violence began, all 3 of us were like, wow, this is a lot more over the top than we expected. And there's a lot of different kinds of over the top violence. You know, we think about like Dead Alive, or even House of a Thousand Corpses, you know, spoiler alerts for that movie. But, you know, once we get down into like the dungeony type place, there's different levels of like extreme gore. I don't know if you guys are into any like the French extremity movies, like Inside. This felt different, and I think it felt different because, and this is a positive to say about this movie, I think this movie is like extremely well shot. It looks really, really good, and some of the effects obviously are, you know, assisted digitally, but it all works really well, and the practical effects look good. We're not pulling away. We're not doing quick cuts. So I do think, you know, even though he was in a much smaller competitive market that in that year, I do think that the movie would kind of stand out even in a normal year. So yeah, it definitely gripped us right away. And then it was just kind of like a hold on to your seats until it ends.
I do agree that the movie is like crafted well. And I think that goes a long way with this. And I think it does allow like a lot of the practical effects to really shine because it does look good. However, I will say, as we get into it, I did not feel that a lot of the kills and the deaths were very impactful. Like they were gross to look at, but none of them really like gripped me or like made me upset the way that I was kind of thinking about. And something like the Squid Game series, like that has some gore, but they kind of do a lot of cutaways. But for some reason, every single death in that was very like effective to me. Like I was pretty like taken aback. Where in this one, you go numb. You go numb after like the first 2. I thought, and it's just like immediately I'm just like, all right, like cool, like this is just what's going to keep happening. What is the next over the top thing they're going to do to try to like get under my skin? And I think it like there's diminishing returns with it.
I just think they don't take any time to really develop anyone, even slightly. So it's hard to give a shit when you don't know the character whatsoever.
Right, yeah. And, you know, for some of the characters who are introduced later, do we even get their names?
No.
You know?
Probably not. No.
Yeah.
I feel like we have 2 names.
Right. I liked how early on They did give us that there are stakes for our main characters. You know, our main dude loses 2 fingers pretty much right off the bat. And that's, you know, you're adding a kind of a ticking time bomb scenario now to your plot, because we as humans know that you can't, you know, cut off 2 fingers and just wrap it in duct tape and that guy will be A-okay. Your character's either going to bleed to death or he's going to get some gnarly infection and he will be dead soon. So I listened to several interviews with the director, Rob, in preparation for this. And this might sound judgmental, but like he didn't strike me as like an incredibly insightful dude. He actually has a movie podcast. And just like listening to him talk about other people's movies, I was like, I'm not sure how you pulled this off. And then I also went and watched some of his like animations that he had done. And like the level of quality for like those finished products are nowhere near the sadness in terms of quality. So I was pretty surprised to see that, you know, he was able to kind of helm this ship that had what I thought were kind of smart devices. Like, for example, you know, cutting off the dude's fingers to give you as the audience a sense of like, oh my God, like I didn't think that was going to happen. And what's going to happen to him now?
Yeah, I agree. And I think when they do start, you know, with the very first crazy death, which I think is the oil scene, I feel like they're setting the stakes up as like pretty well right away. Like the stakes are high. This is hardcore. But we are going to do our 15-second summaries. So in case you haven't heard, or for the folks at home who don't know the bit, we do a 15-second summaries where we just describe the film off the cuff in 15 seconds or less. So we don't pre-write ours. If you've pre-written one, that's A-okay. You can use it. But we don't. So we'll see how that goes.
I can pull my timer up.
I don't think it's going to go well for me.
I don't know. Do you want to go first? You want me to go first?
You can go
All right,
first.
I'm going first. I got nothing. Okay,
go.
All right, a couple tries to survive a weird sadist sort of zombie apocalypse, and then they both die.
Okay.
And that's all I got. 6 seconds. Easy. All right, you ready?
Okay.
All right, Hannah's going to go now.
Torture porn film with gratuitous sexual assault is not fun, and I didn't like it.
Interesting.
Well, that's a description. All right, Seth, are you ready?
I think that's an accurate description too.
Wasn't much of a summary, but that's okay.
No. Whenever you're ready, I'll time you.
Okay. When a viral infection takes over the streets of Taiwan, that's a whole country, a young couple must face danger and loss of limb in order to return to each other alive. The end.
Pretty good. A little bit over, but...
No!
But the most accurate description.
Yes, very much so. Okay, now we are going to do the full plot description. So, here we go. Jim and Kat, a young couple, pass a bloody crime scene while riding their moped to a train station. Jim drops Kat off at the station and then goes to a cafe. Crazed citizens begin attacking each other. Jim manages to escape. Meanwhile, Kat's train is attacked by 2 infected men who stab passengers with knives and infect others. As the newly infected passengers rape and kill the others, Kat escapes from the train with Molly, a woman who was stabbed in the eye. A businessman pursues them through the train station with an axe. Kat and Molly barely escape the train station as an employee named Kevin shuts the entrance. Kat, Molly, and Kevin then arrive at the hospital, which is overrun with those harmed by the infected. The government broadcasts an emergency message vowing to take control of the situation, but an infected army general turns and kills the president with a grenade on live television. Infected people break through the doors. Kat escapes into a stairwell as a man finds Molly in a wheelchair and rapes her eye wound. Jim escapes to the outskirts of town. He contacts Kat, who tells him where she is. As they talk, he begins to cry and hallucinate that a discarded mannequin head is lapping up his blood and sweat, signs that he is infected. Kat is rescued by Alan Wong, a doctor who's been hiding in the maternity ward. Alan explains that he attempted to find a cure for the Alvin virus, which, in its mutated form, connects the parts of the brain that control sexual urges and aggression. When Kat finds an infected baby in a medical waste bin, Alan injects her with the virus to see if she's immune to it. He reveals that he had conducted similar tests on the babies who had been abandoned in the ward, but all of them had become infected. He says that he will kill Kat if she becomes infected, but will spare her if not, to use her immunity to create a cure. Kat uses Kevin's phone to text her location to Jim, who has just arrived at the hospital. When she exhibits no symptoms of the virus, Alan frees her and calls for a military helicopter to escort them both to a safe location. He warns her that the soldiers will not rescue her without him. As they make their way to the roof, 2 infected people attack them. Alan manages to kill them, but is wounded. Jim arrives, revealing that he is infected. After a struggle, he kills the newly infected Alan. Kat locks Jim outside the stairwell to the rooftop. Jim tells her that being infected feels wonderful and that he can think of no more loving act than to mutilate and kill her. Kat begins laughing hysterically. She flees up the stairs and through a door leading to the rooftop. As the door closes behind her, the sound of automatic gunfire is heard. And that's our movie.
Feeling overwhelmed by life's challenges? As frequent listeners know, I work in mental health and I'm constantly advocating for accessible mental health resources, like therapy. And at Salt River Therapy, therapists provide you with a safe, affirming space to heal and grow. Their boutique practice offers compassionate, quality therapy for individuals and couples, both in person in Brooklyn and virtually throughout New York and New Jersey. They specialize in anxiety, grief, low self-esteem, identity issues, trauma, relationship challenges, and more, and accept most New York Aetna plans and have sliding scale rates available. Ready to prioritize your mental health? Schedule a free consultation today at saltrivertherapy.com. Let the therapists at Salt River Therapy support you on your journey to well-being. All right, so we already started talking a bit about our general thoughts, and obviously my 15-second summary revealed some of mine. But I do want to start off asking, do we find this movie scary?
If you're coming to me, I would say no. I found it gross. There wasn't like a time where I was scared or even really concerned about the characters I was watching, to be honest.
So obviously on this show, we count our hides and our screams. We have 0 screams for this one.
Lots of hides.
But we have 4 hides and a gag.
Oh,
which I've never
good.
counted before, but I thought that was worth mentioning.
Seth, any hides, gags, or screams over there for you?
No. And, you know, maybe if I was watching this the first time, that would be different. But once the movie started, even though this isn't something I've thought about a lot since watching it, I pretty much remember the movie like beat for beat. But I would not be surprised if someone, you know, had a lot of hides on this one.
Yeah. There were definitely scenes, and Matt is not a hider, but Matt hid more than I did.
There was a couple hands up to the screen, like, I'm all right.
Right.
Yeah. Honestly, because I just feel like the concept is so out there, it like didn't bother me as much to watch it. Like, I looked away way more times watching The Substance, but that's just like
different
a needle.
Yeah.
I didn't want to look at that. Or even Black Swan, I was like, don't cut your nail like that. That's scary. You'll cut yourself. And I looked away. But this, I was like, whatever. For the most part. I did hide once or twice. But did you find this one scary? Like, obviously it's gross, but...
Yeah, I think so. I think the idea that is eventually revealed through the world's largest exposition dump ever, that the people are not only conscious, but they're sad, and that's why we get the title, you know, the sadness, that the people are crying because they're aware that what they are doing is wrong, but the desire part of their brain is so overwhelmed that they can't stop themselves from doing it, which is, I think, a good idea to explore. I don't know that it's explored here well enough.
Opinion,
but that is a
it's
scary.
not.
Yeah, but that is like a scary thought. The idea, you know, at one point they say like we're really just slaves to our limbic system, and everyone wants to pretend that you're never going to die, you're never going to get sick, you're never going to lose function of your extremities or your mind. We all have lived long enough, and we know enough people to know that that's just not true. And the reality is that a lot of us are going to lose function of our bodies and our minds over the course of our lifetime. That's a scary thought, you know, and that's something that, were we not so concerned with filling every moment with like an over-the-top gore thing, this would be much scarier.
And I completely agree with you. I also think it would need that whole thing needed to be introduced earlier, because by the time we're being told that, I don't want to say I'm checked out, but I'm like over what this movie's doing. Yeah. Because I don't think it really grows anywhere. I think we're kind of just seeing these two stories in the same, like, oh, what gross thing can we do next? So like, I think if that kind of idea of, oh, these people are still human on the inside is introduced earlier, that hits a lot harder. Like, it's not even that good of a twist, to be honest. So I guess I think I like that. It's like I almost overlooked it though, because I was just like, all right, like how much time we got left by that point.
Yeah. Well, I think the movie does give one good twist part of the way through, when he encounters the baseball team, and you think that they're like beating a guy to death, and then it turns out that this guy also has the disease, right? And that he's actually wanting them to hurt him. That is one, it's very disturbing the way the scene plays out, but it's a good twist of like, oh, I don't actually know everything that's happening here with all of these different characters, and it is unexpected.
I agree. That was like a moment that I thought was pretty interesting.
Yeah. I think ultimately our biggest issue that we both had is that obviously we're following the main girl and her partner, but we don't really give a shit about them. They don't really give us a reason to like really care about them. Like, we get that opening scene with them and then they part ways. We just don't have enough to really care what happens. And then we're not, like, I felt like I didn't really give a shit if then they were reunited. Like, that just, until the very end when I realized he had it and then they were being reunited, that's when I cared. But throughout the whole movie, I was like, whatever. If he gets there, he gets there.
And what's interesting is I think a lot of other zombie movies that have been able to achieve that in a very short amount of time, or the similar amount of time. And I can't really pinpoint what they're doing differently.
Train to Busan is a prime example they make you care about the characters
pretty
so fast.
And then immediately things are haywire.
And I think what's great there is that there actually is character growth. That is part of the difference as well. Well, I think it helps that it's a child who's really cute. And then the father goes through character growth and becomes a better parent by the end.
Yes. And I think though,
here we don't have growth at all.
Maybe though the difference is that is a father-daughter story with a zombie apocalypse as the backdrop, where this is a how much gross shit can we show you with the zombie apocalypse as a backdrop. With, I think, as Seth said, a half-baked
cool
attempt
idea.
It's a cool idea, just not finished. About like the like you said, we're slaves to our limbic system, that whole thing, or you know. Our bodies failing us while our minds are still okay. Yeah. Which is very scary. That's something that scares. That's like one of my biggest fears, to be honest.
I do think this movie has a lot of half-baked ideas. I mean, there's clearly this thematic element of the virus is during an election year and the pandemic is a hoax narrative. Like, things that we really did here pre-COVID.
Oh, yeah.
Still here now. Yeah. There's a direct quote, everything is politicized, nothing can be the truth. But beyond those, like, small lines, again, they're not really, like, building or doing much with it.
It felt like the Leo Point meme. Like, they're just trying to give you something that you can recall and be like, oh, yeah, that happened.
Yeah.
Where it's like, is it really trying to say anything about how the United States handled that pandemic, how the government and how our population handled
Well, yeah,
it
because
versus
this isn't
other
a
countries?
U.S. movie.
For sure. Sorry. But I'm saying we're going to relate to it that way.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't feel like it's actually saying anything genuine about how governments across the world or in Taiwan or whatever handled the pandemic.
Yeah.
And I think that's a missed opportunity.
Yeah. The only thing that felt genuine to my experience with the pandemic was the idea of going from 0 to 60, where it was like, you know, you're watching the news and you're kind of hearing things. I remember being at my parents' house in December of 2019 around Christmas, and we were talking about this virus that was happening in China. Mm-hmm. And, you know, so it's kind of like in the background. And when this starts, you know, our male lead, he's watching, you know, basically like a YouTube streamer or whatever who's interviewing someone talking about this virus. Is it the Alvin virus?
Yeah.
They call it? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like something that is in the background of their, consciousness, but it's not real. And, you know, it kind of felt like COVID went from like something that we knew about to like, oh my God, going to the grocery store will kill you, and everyone around you will kill you without trying, and also everything's shut down. And it felt like it just happened like overnight, you know. So that this time around, that I thought that they did that kind of well. Sometimes when you are doing a zombie apocalypse movie, you know, you'll hear about things like, oh, such and such happened over in this town, and oh, there's reports of someone going crazy over here. Where this one, it's just like, boom, you know, everyone kind of activates at the same time. I wanted to say, when you guys were talking about, you know, our establishing scene in the beginning with the two main characters, it's a little odd. And what we basically establish is that the dude sucks.
Yeah.
You know, as he's breaking it to her that he's not going to take this vacation with her that was hard for her to take, and he's going to go do this job instead. And she goes to the bathroom. She doesn't see his face, but we see, you know, through the door, he's basically like, hey, are you going to take that bun to lunch? And when she says, no, you can have it, he's like, yes. Like, that's what he's thinking. That's where his head is at. Moments after giving her this like really upsetting news, he's not thinking about how he can fix it or what he can do. And I think that we're supposed to see him go on this journey of like caring about her, but then he gets infected part of the way through, and so it's cut short. So the only thing that I will say is I don't know why I try to make everything into a silver lining, but what we can say is that it's original.
You know, I feel like I'm usually the one that's like trying to find good, especially if it's a movie. If it's a movie I really like, I will say, even if I know it's like not that good, I'm gonna find it. This one, I am like struggling. Other than I think like the practicals and the way it was shot to like say nice things. Is there anything else that you like a lot about it that we can talk about before we like really dig into it?
Did you notice in the beginning his recommendation is for her to go up onto the roof?
No, wait, I'm trying to remember that.
So in the beginning, when she's talking about like, oh, I want to go on this vacation, he says, oh, you could go up on the roof to get a tan.
He suggests tanning on the roof.
Oh my God. I do.
That okay,
and
that's pretty funny.
And that's her escape at the end. So
yeah,
escape.
You know, that's you know, tangentially a seed that comes to something. He's like, oh, we need a callback here. Oh, I forgot about those. Yeah, I mean, I know I said something, you know, some disparaging thing about Jabbaz and his work and his opinion on films. In one of the interviews, because I was like, what is this guy just like, as the young folks say, like an edgelord kind of provocateur,
that's my opinion.
Who's just, you know, and I listened to an interview with him, and the interviewer asked him, like, what are movies that were too extreme for you? Or is there like a level of violence that you are not into? And he mentioned like, he's like, I don't get into any of like the August Underground films. I don't know if you guys are aware of that series. If you're not, don't get into them. But so I was kind of like, okay, I don't agree with his idea that zombies are kind of like done because just getting eaten isn't scary enough, right? And so we need to add an element of like literal sexual assault to shake audiences up and give them something more to be afraid of. I don't agree with that. I'm still afraid of being eaten. That's still...
let's get into that then, because I know Hannah and I have a lot to say about this like sadist element.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, I thought it was obscene. That's the first thing
I was going to read a direct quote that has to do with what you were saying.
Sure.
Direct quote in the interview I was reading. I was just trying to figure out a way to make this idea scary again, as you mentioned. And how I did it was to make the zombies absolutely 100% aware of what they're doing. I really believe that the reason why zombies are so popular globally is that these movies set up things so it's okay to kill someone, and the zombies don't have a mind or agency. The bad things don't actually know it's their fault. So he thought it was great to have this idea where they do know it's their fault, obviously, that they're hurting people. Hence the crying, the sadness. Therefore, he was like, what if we make them really cruel and really sadistic? They take pleasure in harming people. So I tried to give myself memorable villains to work with and some ideas. I really just feel like this movie was him just trying to find ways to push the envelope and be as gory and disgusting as possible, which he literally says it was based around creating a lot of good gore gags. And I just am never okay with gratuitous sexual assault being the answer to that.
I agree. I think there are plenty of other movies that do, well, not what I would say sexual assault, but like a psychosexual element to their villains, like the Hellraiser series, things like that do it fine. This one, I just don't think it's like, I think this is a misread. I think him also saying that like, we need to shake up zombies, like you were saying, to make them more scary. It's just a complete misread on how zombies are, because you know what? One of the scariest zombie movies ever made is still Night of the Living Dead, which I watched this past year. And it's probably still one of my favorite zombie movies. And it's simple. It has surprisingly just as good of effects in some ways as this does. And it was, 1968. So I don't think there's that much that you need to shake up with this formula.
I also just think it's so problematic to take something that is such a significant fucking trauma and just throw that in for what feels like shits and giggles.
Well, yeah, he's like trying to push the envelope. Like I said, I think it's just a complete misread, for me at least.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, what are we doing by making a film? Are we telling a story? Or are we presenting images, right? And a good film is going to do both of those things. I have gotten a lot of flack, and, please forgive me if you two, who currently are matching in light blue, disagree with me, but I don't like the Avatar movies. I don't think that it's a story that creates any kind of spark in my brain. I think that the stories are really secondary to the visuals. A lot of people love those movies and they have a great emotional reaction to them. So clearly it's just me, right? But the visual part of my brain doesn't override the story part there. If I watch something like The Color of Pomegranates, which is a great film, I highly recommend anybody check it out. It's very visual, beautiful, poetic storytelling through visuals. And there's dialogue, it's a little bit of a story. Another movie, like, for example, Koyaanisqatsi, that series, visuals, a lot of great visuals, a lot of great music to accompany the visuals, not necessarily a full-on narrative, but the visuals are telling us a story, right? And so you don't have to have only one, right? You can, I think it's Derek Jarman's Blue, which is literally just a blue static color. There's no movement at all in the movie. There's no movement, and it's just voices that you hear, right? So you can do both, but in this film, I fully believe that they wanted to show things and then build a story around it. So when you sacrifice your story, you can justify weaponizing. I think weaponizing is an okay word to use, because I think, you know, the point of the movie is to assault the senses of the audience. You can justify weaponizing something that doesn't really contribute to your story, but it contributes to your images. And so, you know, rape scenes, narratives in film are always going to be very, very contentious. Like you said, Hanna, it's something that is so personal, and unfortunately, because of the society that we live in, is connected to everyone around us, right? So it's always going to be very contentious about their role in art. I fully believe that if something happens in life, it should happen in art. It's just how it happens and why, and what are we employing and why, and you know, oh, it's so provocative to make a film in 2025 and use blackface. Ooh, wouldn't that be so provocative, right? But why? What are we doing? Like, what story are we telling? And so, you know, I think that it's a misfire. Like you guys said, it's a shame, because there could be, you know, have you guys seen It Follows?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. So I would say that It Follows is a more well thought out idea about sexuality, the ramifications of sex, STDs, all of those different things within a horror genre. So I'm not going to say like you could never do that. It's just, why did they do it this way?
Yeah.
Yep.
No, 100%. And we've talked about one of our earliest episodes. It probably has like the worst sound quality ever, but we covered Midsummer right in the beginning. And obviously Midsummer has the sexual assault scene with Christian, but the difference is that like that is adding to the story and the themes of the story and the emotional impact of the story. And it's just so different to have gratuitous sexual violence versus a scene that actually does something to further the narrative, the emotions, and the themes of your movie.
That is such a good example, because I do think, because I feel the same way as you, Seth. I was like, well, this is a real thing. It should be okay to put on film. There's a right way to do it. And it is, I think, a razor thin line of what the right way to do it is. Because in Midsummer, it's like, I almost would call it like necessary. Like it's a really important scene that I think takes that movie into like another level in some ways, which sounds insane for me to say. Like I don't like to be like, yeah, the rape scene makes it better, but like that is it's an important scene to that film and to that narrative. But you really, I think you just have to do the groundwork. You have to do so much pre-work with your script, with the movie you're making, for it to work. And it's still not going to work for everybody. Yeah. But in this one, it's not there. They started with the gratuitous sexual assault with this movie and then worked backwards.
I feel like they had this thing with him on the bus, like sexualizing her and like being really uncomfortable towards her on the bus. And then I feel like they were like, we've set it up.
That was scarier than the actual guy coming after her.
I did actually appreciate that, and like I don't think that it washes everything that comes after in a healthy glow.
No,
but I think it can. I think that there are priorities when you're telling a story, right? And his priority was audiences are not scared or shocked. We will do something to scare and shock them. And that's the high point, right? That's where all the money's going. All of the money in this budget is into the practical effects and how to make it look reasonable to our, educated CGI eyes, that these violent acts are happening, right? So that's the priority. But within that, we do get this interaction between her and the old man. And I wrote down some of what he says. Clearly, he's beginning to lose his social moorings as the virus is starting to take over. And he goes from what we would consider, hey, just don't talk to women like ever, on public transit. But he goes from hey, what book are you reading? Which I think most of the time anybody would be like, okay, whatever, fine. I'm reading a book. Yeah, we can talk about this book, but also just leave me alone. It's so hard for me as a movie lover when I see people wearing movie shirts to not be like, hey, do you want to talk to me about this movie? And then I'm like, nobody wants to talk to me in public. I'm a weird looking person. But it goes from that to violent. And I do like how they show the escalation from quote unquote innocent to what's actually in his mind and heart. So I wrote down, he says, what's wrong with people these days is having a conversation on the train a crime. Women these days are all the same, thinking they can be rude because they are pretty, which unfortunately is something that we hear more and more from idiot losers.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. And that's what I'm saying. That scene was scarier to me than I think when he actually turns into, this sadist zombie. Because that's much more real. And that's a very real fear that women live with, where it's if they don't say the exact right keywords to not get themselves beaten up by this guy or killed by this guy, that's a real fear that I think a lot of women live in. And
yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Has happened to me on public transportation.
Here we go. But then it's just okay, well, now he's this, sadist zombie. Yeah. So is it... I don't know. It's almost it's relieving the actual guy of his actions, because it's oh, well, now, it's the virus's fault. Not that he was actually maybe kind of shitty beforehand.
Yeah. Well, in a way, just to relate this to something else that I have no idea how it has spawned so many sequels, but the removal of the self-decision, right, has been explored a lot in the Purge series. That normal people, if you remove the ramifications of their actions, what will they do? And the Purge theorizes that they will put on masks and kill and do all kinds of horrible, crazy things, because part of the equation is missing. And so this goes on to say, well, if the part of the equation, which is just control over your desires, is gone, this is what will happen.
And that's such a nihilistic read, if we're going to get philosophical with it.
Sure.
I think it's kind of bullshit, to be honest. If that's what this disease does, it removes your constraints, it removes your control.
And you're telling me
you're telling me that's
we're just what everyone wants, 100% of people, that's what our urge is to assault and murder, because I can tell you that's not what Hannah
would just quit her job and go to national parks. That's that if her
right.
Yeah, if I had no control.
Yeah.
Right. And again, it's I think at a certain point we do have to stop and say, what are we looking for from this film? And we're not going to get it from this film.
No.
But the scientist at the end does discuss the link between aggression and sexuality, which if you read into human sexuality it's a very interesting overlap. Why is it that in human behavior, a lot of sexuality has to do with violence, or the simulation of violence, or the simulation of, domination and submission? And why are those two things linked at all? Those things aren't linked when I eat a chocolate bar. You know what I mean? And so what is it about how humans interact with each other in this realm that also has to do with this thing that you would never think would marry together? And were this a different film, I think that they would explore it a little bit better.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like I don't hate this film. I should say that. I don't hate this film. I also wouldn't really go to bat for this film. But I think once we get to the point of making artists justify what they do, it's a slippery slope that will never stop. We just have to say, what are you presenting to me? I don't like it.
Yep, I completely agree.
You know, it's like, what are you serving? Not for me. Nope, I don't like that.
It doesn't mean I can't get frustrated over it, though.
Yeah.
No, yeah.
It doesn't mean that I can't see like the makings of something good. I don't know if I would say it in this movie, but that's a lot of the times where it's like I'm frustrated watching something because it's like I can see the pieces and it's like I feel like you just missed. And maybe it's a me thing. Like we've watched a couple of the new releases this year, and a lot of them have not like hit for me. And other people we've talked to like, oh, I liked it. It was fun. And it's like I think I'm just looking for something more with these, and it could be a me problem. But maybe I'm just like I'm demanding more of filmmakers.
Well, and I think a lot of our purpose for our podcast is to really consider like what was the filmmaker trying to do here? What were they trying to say with their movie? So of course, like on our show, we're trying to figure that out. So if we can't find a purpose, sometimes it's still a fun movie, and sometimes that makes us not like the movie.
Yes.
And unfortunately, this is one of those because
well, no, we understand the purpose. I just think his purpose.
I think the purpose is
sucks.
shitty. And with everything else that the movie starts to say, it's not a full thought. And I think that would have been a better line to pursue. Like, again, we talked about the politicizing the virus. That would be, and especially the timing, like clearly whoever had the idea was like, that's relevant. Let's pursue that. And that just doesn't really get touched. It also dips into discussion of what's ethical in research with the doctor at the end who has experimented on these babies. And it kind of asks the question, like, was that wrong? Because they were going to get the virus and die anyway, or be like murdered gruesomely.
Yeah.
And these things just don't
add up to anything.
They don't add up to anything, so it just feels dumb.
I think too, one of the reasons why this might irritate certain lovers of horror is if you love horror, you have to grapple within yourself with why you do. I recently went and watched The Monkey, Osgood Perkins' The Monkey, and the movie's very divisive from a lot of people.
It was
Personally,
divisive between the two of us. Because that was one of the movies I was talking about. I did not like it. Hannah liked it more.
Liked it more, but I didn't love it. And then our guest loved it.
Yeah.
Right. I personally enjoyed it because I didn't take it to be a horror film at all. I don't think it's a horror comedy. I think it's a comedy that happens to have gore. Whenever a film exists between genres and isn't easily understandable, we just talked about Vampire's Kiss on the show, which is a film that defies genre and is very hard to sell to people because it's like, what do I tell people this is about, right? And between The Sadness and The Monkey, I was really contemplating, why do we enjoy watching people die? Why do we enjoy watching people get hurt? And for a certain breed of horror fans, that's something that you might feel that you have to explain or compensate for. Horror has to do something beyond being horrific, because if you don't have something to latch onto within the narrative to explain to somebody, well, this is why I actually like Michael Myers, because it's a story about X, Y, and Z. This is why I actually like Freddy Krueger. I'm not a sick person who just likes watching horror, right? I mean, you know what I mean? Like, you'll occasionally find a horror person who's just kind of like this guy, who's like, yeah, blah, blah. I like watching people get blown apart, blah, 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 blah. And, you know, that is a different type of person. So I think for certain types of horror fans, The Sadness is almost essential watching to help you dredge up those questions and question yourself and question, what do I get out of this? Why didn't The Sadness work for you? Why didn't The Sadness work for me? Why did it work for me? What can I excuse? What am I looking for? I think it's a good like litmus test for yourself.
I think that was really well said.
Yeah.
I don't know how else to add on to it. Because I think that we're people that are like, I think I've said many times before, I think I'm a film person first, a horror person second. The reason we wanted to talk about horror on the podcast is because we think it's an overlooked genre when it comes to the way people talk about it and the way people treat it. Like a lot of people be like, oh, I don't like horror movies. And it was like, okay, well, that's like, I joke, I said, that's like saying you don't like the Beatles. Like there are 50 different genres within their work, right? And within the horror work. And there's
or
there's
Nick
something
Cage.
for everyone. Or Nick Cage,
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Which one don't you like?
Which one? Yeah. So that's, I think, what we wanted to cover. And I think that there's also a lot of really good and rich thematic analysis and rich themes within a lot of horror movies.
I think horror is a really good avenue to pursue feelings that are not positive. Like it's a really great avenue to pursue feelings that we find frightening or anxiety inducing.
I love a movie that can make me feel like shit, horror or not. Like if it can make me feel bad, I'm there. You know?
Oh yeah. Now you guys are talking my language. Feel bad cinema. That is my favorite. I want a movie to destroy me. Like fully.
Ideally, yes.
I think
that is the ultimate goal.
I think the line for us both, funnily enough, was Manchester by the Sea.
Oh, I love
that
Manchester
one.
by the Sea.
As good as it is, that is like right where it's like, ooh, are we? This is like a little sadistic on my end, putting it on, you know?
Sure.
I've seen that movie so many times, but the first time I watched that movie, I was depressed for weeks.
She had like actual like issue like after watching it.
Yeah, I think
it's very, very tough.
I was teetering on a depressive episode anyway, and so that one was just like, we're there, buddy. Let's go.
Yep, absolutely.
But it's so good. Anyway.
It is very good. I'm sure there's much more feel bad ones out there. I think that one just like, that sole purpose was to, I think, fuck with you. And it works.
No.
Its sole purpose is to make you feel bad.
I mean, it's exploring a lot more than that.
For
like
sure. But
grief and loss.
I know. I agree with all that
it's
as well.
It's doing so much more than that. But.
And so it is frustrating when you look for thematic enrichment and you look for those things and you walk out and you're like, wow, that was just people getting assaulted and getting their hands cut off. I didn't glean anything from that. But again, silver lining, you did glean something from that because you gleaned I think of certain films as an explorer going out and putting down a flag and saying, this is the perimeter of this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so,
you make a good point.
And so for you guys and for anyone who watched it, who hated it, guess what? You just put down a goalpost, a flag, a marker to say, this is my boundary. And now I've increased my boundaries for film experience and my own tastes. And so, hey man, silver lining. I don't know why. I can't just say this movie sucks.
That's what I was planning on coming here and saying, and I was like, all right, I got to be nice.
There are things about it that simply don't suck, but then there are things about it that suck. Yeah. And it just, for me, it sucks.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
So, like, it just is what it is.
I would be down to watch something as gross and gratuitous as this. It just needs to do something beyond that. And that's, I think, what you were saying, Seth, is it's just like, I'm okay. And like, I don't know if Saw is as gross and gratuitous, but Saw franchise, even all of it, even after 5, even though I don't think it's good, works for me because it's a soap opera. And I got this whole soap opera convoluted bullshit story that I'm having a great time with. I'm like, what's going on next in the world of Detective Hoffman, Right. And it's like, what's that? I don't really care about all the traps at this point. They're just kind of a fun like break between this weird drama I have going on. And that works for me. We've long said that about the Saw franchise. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then they kind of get good again with, I think, Spiral and Saw 10. So
yeah, I mean, I had a good time with Spiral. I even had a somewhat okay time with Jigsaw. Loved Saw X. I think that should be the end of the John Kramer series. I don't know how there aren't like 30 Saw movies at this point because you literally just do copycats. Like,
yeah. And I will watch all of them.
Yeah. Like you could have, oh no, there's a Saw copycat in Montreal and that guy has 3. Oh no, there's a Saw copycat in Belgium and that guy has 3 movies. Like it never ends because it's like Final Destination. It's just a premise and the premise is interesting ways of killing people, but they have to do it themselves. You don't need John Kramer. I mean, as much as I love John Kramer, X should be the end. It's probably the second best Saw movie after the first one, in my opinion. Anyway, sorry.
No, that's interesting. It's definitely top 3 or 4.
Yeah.
I have to think about that. I don't know if I could rank them. I just want like Law and Order, like Saw copycat TV procedural.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. It should be a TV show. Absolutely. Each episode is a new Jigsaw.
Perfect. I love it. Let's write that. Nobody take that idea.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have anything else we need to say about this movie?
I got nothing. I think I said everything I have.
I would add that it's hard also for me to be scared and tense throughout this movie since we don't know how the virus spreads.
Good point.
And I will say, you could argue that that's scarier, not understanding the virus, and like we didn't understand COVID, so it was so scary. Do we have to wipe down all of our shit when we buy it from the grocery store before we bring it in the house?
Masks work, masks don't work.
Yeah,
masks
like
work.
so I very much understand like how you could argue that that's not a problem, but for me, I did not know when to be scared if I did not understand the disease. So when they would go near people, I'm like, yeah, the people could murder you, but like, are you inherently getting the disease by being near these people or not?
Yeah,
I don't know. Yeah. So I don't know if I'm supposed to be worried yet.
Yeah, good point.
Takes me all the way back to Night of the Living Dead, where you don't get the disease unless you die. Worked even better, right?
Yeah, I guess that was my only other question for you guys is like, they're trying to do a new spin of like fully conscious zombies where we've seen like varying degrees of that throughout zombiedom, where there's the ones who just are totally, not aware of what's going on, to like Shaun of the Dead type zombies, to the Walking Dead type zombies. I don't know that I need like zombies to always be something different. If you guys, I don't know how old you guys are. I'm 36. And so for the majority of my life, zombies have been this huge cultural thing where like when I was younger, they would sell like zombie survival guide books, and something that you would ask each other was like, what's your zombie survival plan? Like nerds would ask each other that. And you like had an answer. You're like, well, the first thing I'm doing is I'm going to the coast. And
so I'm 29. I just turned 29, and yes, we had that as well.
Yeah. So
and all those books were written by Mel Brooks' son, Max Brooks, the guy that wrote World War Z.
Right.
Yeah, weird, right?
That's right.
Not a good Nepo baby.
I'm not gonna say I'm over zombie movies. I'm actually kind of in the process of writing one right now, but like, I just kind of reject, the director's idea that's like, we need to reinvent something. I don't know.
We don't.
No.
I don't care. We don't.
You can make an interesting story still without changing, like reinventing the wheel here. Like you can still have a good story. Like if you take Train to Busan versus Night of the Living Dead versus Wreck, they're all very different stories that accomplish something different or make you feel different, but they're all roughly the same style of zombie.
Or even look at like The Last of Us.
Yeah.
Like they achieve something completely different, but like their zombies are a little more interesting because the whole mushroom thing, but like still it's the same purpose.
Yeah. It's not.
I always see it like Godzilla. So they say like the key to a good Godzilla film isn't to change Godzilla, it's you have a good human story, which we all experienced that with Godzilla -1, right? Godzilla -1 ruled because it's got an incredible human story, good acting, scenes where you forget that you're watching a Godzilla movie because the drama is just so good. That's what makes it good. And so I feel like zombies, much like Godzilla, don't need to be changed. But that's another topic.
Well, we're a little over an hour here, so I think it's probably time to give this a 10 rating out of 10, and then
I was
wrap
going to
it
say,
up.
This isn't good.
Give it a 10. Yeah, no, it's not. I rated this. I'm giving it my my Letterboxd score. I was going to bump my score a little bit based on our discussion, but I'm going to hold fast to what I gave it on Letterboxd.
Which is?
I gave it a 1 star out of 5 on Letterboxd, so it's getting a 2 out of 10. I need to have some lower ranked movies on my thing because I rate everything too high. So sorry, the sadness, but you're falling on that sword.
Seth, what about you? Because I know you're going to give it different than Matt.
Sure. So I did not review or rate this one after rewatching. So I'll go with my original score, which was 3.5.
Okay, so he's close
which
to
might
me.
be surprising if you just listened to me talk about this for an hour.
A 3.5 out of 5?
Yes.
Or
Oh,
okay.
out of 5. Oh, I thought you were saying 3.5 out of 10. Okay.
Damn.
That's pretty high.
And I mostly, let's see here. I mostly discredited it for the massive exposition dump and the idea that we should be shown not told and how everything kind of felt like rushed in explaining it. But I appreciate the practical effects. I think that there are things that are undeniable. And the things that are undeniable is that it looks good. It's good practical effects. It is scary. And again, like, what am I looking for from this movie? So, yeah.
My first instinct was that I wanted to refuse to rate it because of the gratuitous sexual violence pissed me off so much. But I think I would go a 4 out of 10 because it's certainly not the worst made movie I've watched. And similarly, I want to give credit where credit's due with the things that it did well. But unfortunately, there's just much more that I think it did poorly.
Well, I think I gave Annabelle a 2 out of 10, and this is on Annabelle level for me. So
I think this is
That's what I'll
better than
take.
Annabelle. So
really, okay,
Good.
yeah,
that's high praise.
that's not high praise. Annabelle is
Put that on the
dog
back of the
shit.
Blu-ray.
Yeah, better
Yeah.
than Annabelle.
Better than
I gave a
Annabelle.
Annabelle, I gave a 3. So giving
Okay, there
this
you
a
go.
4,
All right,
a 3.5 or 4 would be
makes
really
sense.
the slight improvement.
Well, we're gonna wrap it up here. So, Seth, tell us again where the people can find you.
Absolutely. Moviefriendspodcast.com. Movie Friends Podcast. Everywhere you listen to podcasts. And Twitter and Instagram. Movie Friends Podcast. That's about it. Very simple.
Perfect. Okay, well, thank you again so much for joining us. This was great. I'm a little mad that you made us watch The Sadness, but that's okay. We'll still invite you back.
It's kind of my fault.
Well, hey, if you had said, hey, you want to come on our show and you pick the movie, I would not have picked this one.
Yeah,
Honestly, I probably would have looked at I probably would have looked at the movies you hadn't done and I'd be like, oh, horror movies? Cool, we're watching Cure.
My bad.
It happens.
Matt's gonna be mad at me forever now.
Yeah, I should be mad at you, not Seth.
No, I did tell you, like, it is my fault that we watched
I know.
it.
I need. There needs to be some animosity.
You didn't make the
here.
movie. You know,
Good point.
That's true.
You didn't.
put
Yeah.
credit where credit's due.
Yeah,
It's Rob
Rob.
Jabbaz's fault.
Stupid Canadian white man.
That's even weirder. He's making this movie in Taiwan. Dude just ran from COVID to make it in Taiwan.
But hey, look, it was a good conversation. I appreciate you guys asking me to come on. And, you know, when you podcast for a while, you learn they can't all be good, you know, and
Yep.
you don't want your show to be sycophantic and you know what I mean? Like you gotta do the good and the bad. So
Completely
Yeah.
agree.
So here we are.
All right.
Doing
Well,
it
glad
not
I was
so
here
good.
to help guide you through the terrible one.
No, we appreciate it. I needed it. Okay, well, let's wrap it up. I've been Matt Hanna.
I'm Hannah.
This is Horror with the Hannas. That's Seth. Go follow him. Follow us. All that good stuff.
Bye.
We'll see ya.
Thank you for listening to Horror Hour with the Hannas. Make sure to listen to future episodes on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, or wherever else you can find podcasts. You can also find us on YouTube, where we post episodes and shorts. You can follow us at Horror Hour with the Hannas on TikTok and Instagram, as well as at Horror Hour on Blue Sky for more content. If you like the podcast, please follow and leave a review on your favorite podcasting app. Happy hauntings!